We're making the most tender and juicy pork tenderloin you have ever tasted. With the sous vide cooking method, you get perfectly cooked pork every single time. And we're finishing it with a reverse sear for a golden crust and drizzling over a simple buttery honey garlic sauce. Hello, my name is Nicole Bonilla, and if you love healthier recipes made with all natural ingredients, then you are in the right place. To make this honey garlic pork tenderloin, we're going to start by making a really simple sauce. And I'm just going to use a measuring bowl here, so it makes it really easy to measure in 1/3 cup of honey. And you're welcome to jot down these ingredients as we go along, or you can click on the link in the video description below, which takes you to the website, which has the full recipe with all the details. Next, we're going to add 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar and 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. And then we'll just whisk this together until it's well combined. And then we can set this aside. Now for the pork tenderloin, I went ahead and bought one of those really long ones that was about 11.5 pounds, and then I cut it into thirds. So what I have here is about 3.5 to 4 pounds of pork. Now before the pork goes into our sous vide bag, we want to season it really well. So I'm going to sprinkle on some coarse sea salt and some garlic powder. I find it works best to go ahead and just dump it on out of the big container. And some paprika and a little bit of black pepper. And I'm going to pat that in with my hand. And then I'm going to roll the pork over and do the same thing to all 4 sides. Now I know this might seem like a lot of salt, but we have a very thick piece of meat. And then I want to make sure I have seasoning on all sides. So I just kind of lift it up, kind of dab it in the seasonings that are already on the plate. And I don't want to forget about the ends. Now I have a very well seasoned piece of pork. Now when it comes to sous vide bags, you have 3 options. You could either use a Ziploc bag or a resealable sous vide bag, or you could use a vacuum sealed bag. My preference is to use the resealable bags because they're reusable, and you can open the bag to check the temperature if needed before it's done cooking. So before we place the meat in the bag, I'm going to fold the bag open on the end, and this makes it much neater when we need to close the bag. And then we'll just place our meat down inside. And then before we seal it, we want to add about 1/4 cup of our marinade. So I'm just going to pour that right inside. And then to seal the bag, I'll go ahead and close the bag. And then I'll just press it down once with my finger. And then I'll use the little clip that comes with the bag. And then I'll run this along the top to make sure we have a really good seal. And I love these bags because they have this really convenient little vacuum pump that gets all of the air out of the bag. Now because we have so much juice in this bag, if I lay it down flat and then start pumping out the air, the juice is going to come out very quickly with the air. So to avoid this, I found if I take a flat surface, turn my bag upright, then turn on my pump and place it over the valve and press it against the cutting board, it's able to suck out the air while keeping the juices in the bottom of the bag. And then I can take it off right before the juice reaches the valve. Now we don't have to completely remove all of the air, we just have to remove enough so that our meat is against the edges of the bag. And that's going to help it cook to an even temperature in our sous vide bath. Now there are lots of options for a sous vide machine that are very affordable. This one happens to be my favorite, not only because of the pretty cream color, but I also love that it has a timer on it. Now you could use the clear sous vide containers, or you can use any pot that is big enough to hold enough water so that it reaches the minimum water line on your sous vide machine, and it can hold the size of your meat. So I'm just going to use the stock pot, and I've already filled it with water above my minimum fill line. Then I'll just lower our bag of meat down into the pot and making sure that it's covered with at least 1 inch of water. And I'll go ahead and use a little clip on the side just to hold it in place and keep it down. I'll set the temperature to 150 and then my timer to 5 hours. And then it will come to temperature and then start the countdown. And then I'll set this pot in the corner of my kitchen and just let it cook away for 5 hours. It seriously does not get any easier. Well, here's our pork after 5 hours in our sous vide cooker, and it looks gorgeous. We'll go ahead and open our bag. Oh man, and it smells good too. So I can go ahead and pull out our pork. Let the extra juices run off. And then I'm going to place it onto some paper towels on a plate. Now we could serve this pork as is and it will be delicious, but we want to put that really beautiful golden char on the outside. But before we do that, we want to blot off any extra moisture, and then we're going to put it in a very hot pan, and we're just going to sear the sides for about a minute on each side until we get that nice golden color. And we don't want to toss out our juice because we're going to use this in our sauce. So to get ready for the sauce, I'm going to add just a couple tablespoons of this to a small bowl. And then I'm gonna add 1.5 tablespoons of some cornstarch. And I'll just mix these together with a fork until it's dissolved. And then we have this great little slurry that we'll add to our marinade that we made before we started cooking our pork. Now to sear the pork, you'll want to use a sturdy frying pan. A cast iron pan works really well. I'm gonna go ahead and use my Hexclad. And I've got it over a medium-high heat so that we can get an instant sear as soon as the meat touches the oil. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour in a couple tablespoons of some light olive oil, just until we have a very light coating over the entire surface of the pan. Now that oil is nice and hot, I'm gonna very carefully lower our pork down into the pan. Woo, that instant sizzle is exactly what we want to hear. Now I'm just gonna let this rest for about a minute, and then I'll continue to rotate it so that each edge gets that golden sear. Now our meat is completely cooked, so we're not trying to cook it any further. We're just trying to get a golden crust on the outside. Oh, that looks so good. I'm gonna go ahead and hold it up just with my tongs so that it can cook on this thinner side. Ooh, that side looks good. I'll go ahead and kind of hold it up on this corner. And then I'm gonna pick it up on the end. We got a little bit of color there. Oh my goodness, that looks so good. And then I'll go ahead and carefully take it out and put it onto our plate. Now I'm gonna move this pan out of the way and bring in a smaller saucepan. And I'm gonna reduce my heat to a low medium. And then I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of butter. We'll give that a chance to melt in the bottom of our pan. Now that butter's melted, I went ahead and minced 4 cloves of garlic. So I'm gonna go ahead and toss that inside, along with 1/2 teaspoon of some Italian seasoning. And I'll give that a good stir. And then we'll give it about a minute or two until the garlic softens. Now I'm not gonna add any salt to this because we'll be adding some of the liquid from our sous vide bag, which has lots of salt in it that we had seasoned our pork with. Well, it's been about 2 minutes and our butter is just starting to brown. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour in the rest of our marinade and our cornstarch slurry. And then we'll give that a good stir, and then we're gonna allow this to simmer for about 4 or 5 minutes or until it's nice and thickened. And then we have this thick, beautiful sauce. Now, if you'd like to have some additional sauce to be able to pour over your vegetables that you're serving your pork with, we can go ahead and pour in a little bit more of our stock that was inside of our sous vide bag. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour in about 2 more tablespoons of our liquid. And then we'll stir that in. Well, that is the perfect consistency, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my heat, and this sauce is done. Well, now we have this gorgeous pork loin as well as this incredibly smelling sauce. And I am ready to dig in. Go ahead and slice a little piece off the end. Oh my goodness, that is so tender and soft, and the incredible color that we have on the outside. Put that on my plate. Add a little bit of this thick, gorgeous, garlicky butter honey sauce. And you can determine how thick you want it just by adding more or less of our stock from the sous vide bag. Oh my goodness, that cuts so easily just with my fork. That is delicious. As soon as you bite in, you just get this delicious burst of the garlic and the honey and the butter. And then the meat is just so juicy and tender and soft. And I love the flavor from that golden sear on the outside. That is seriously so good and was so easy to make. And I love that it's made with clean, natural ingredients, which means I'm gonna feel just as good even after I eat it. And I want you to know that I believe in you and your ability to make and eat those healthy foods that are gonna leave you feeling fantastic from the inside out. And I just wanna support you in any way that I can. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen. And I've included a link to the full recipe in the video description below. And that takes you to my website, gentletomy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you know someone else who you think would love this recipe, please share this video with them. And I cannot wait to have you hang out with me again in my kitchen.